before you start. And the second one, he doesn't want to. He's like, second,
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
Édifice, tout récit de marbre de porphyre, qu'amour bâtit château de son empire, où tout le ciel a mis son artifice. Talons pas en fort contre le vice, pour la vertu maîtresse se l'attire, que l'œil regarde et que l'esprit admire. Forçons les cœurs à lui faire service. C'est un château fait de telle sorte que nul ne peut approcher de la porte. Si des grands rois il a sauvé sa race, victorieux, vaillant et amoureux, nul chevalier ton soit aventureux sans être tel ne peut gagner la place.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Nick at 9, an opera variety show hosted by me, Nicholas Brownlee, right here on the TDO Network. That was my version of a quasi-Tiny Desk concert. I was singing the Jacques Ibert Don Quixote. That's the first song from that cycle. It's an excellent, excellent cycle. Not well known enough. All you bass baritones out there, go sing it because it's lower than the Ravel. Hint, hint. It's easier. But it's actually harder, but it's easier. Francois Salion, I got a real Frenchman on the piano, and we had to film that at his house because it's summertime. And like Germans take summertime very seriously, which is what happens when you take art for real and you pay people salaries and you give them a real life and they can have like real vacations. So everyone's gone, like out of the office, emails all the way around. So it's hard to sort of find a place to record. So Francois, thank you for letting us record in your study. Classic Frenchman. He's got posters of philosophers hanging up, and we talked about technique versus music for 15 minutes before. Oh, it's just really, really a good time. So today's show is amazing because at the end we announce the winner of Opera Madness. What you all have been waiting for. Well, I hope. What you all have been waiting for. I am so stoked and excited to get to that. But before we do, I want to introduce a new segment to this series that I like to call simply Talking Technique. That's right, folks. So I love technique. I'm a technique nerd. I'm a technique insane person because I think all of technique does is serve us as artists and serve us as singers and allows us to make the music we want to make. Now, there's been obviously an influx of amazing content that's been coming out. I mean, in one foul swoop, you can watch Michael Fabiano give a lesson, Isabel Leonard give a lesson. You can watch, you can buy a masterclass of pianists like giving incredible lessons. I mean, there's so much information at our disposal. And so, as a young singer, and this is for the young singer crowd out there, and singers in general, musicians in general even, there is an immense amount of information out there right now. And so you can sort of, you just be spinning out and swirling completely. And so I think it's important that before we get in the next couple of weeks, we'll get into actually technique and like what I think about breathing and that stuff. If you're interested, I guess I'm just going to add one more voice to the echo chamber. But mine's right. No. But before we get into that, I want to talk about like what is technique, because everyone sort of talks about it, but what is it? What is it this, how is it this tangible thing that we can take with us? And so basically, I'm going to put the Webster's Dictionary definition right here, right? Which you can read. It's about pulling off an artistic task with precision, right? And however, a technique is to serve your art, not the other way around. Right? So if you just have good technique, but you don't say anything, then that's almost worthless. It's almost worse because you could actually do it, but you don't say anything, right? So there's a lot of, like with most singers, we're very opinionated about what works for us. It's the end all be all. This is what works for me. This is what works for everybody, right? We get insane about it. Okay. That's fine. Because to be honest, I think I know the only way to sing, but of course that's not true. Right? So it is with that sort of thing that we talk about, like Pavarotti's face looked like this, right? Caruso's face looked like this. Giacomini's face looked like this. I only talk about tenors, but for the sake of evenness, Bryn Terfel's face looked like this, right? Gierov's face looked like this, right? So there's a million different ways to skin the cat, if you'll allow the metaphor. I am from Alabama after all. So let's talk about the three things that I think, these are quick 3 points to sort of check in and know if you're going down the right path or perhaps you maybe need to reevaluate, right? So I think this is true for any real artistic endeavor. Number one and number one only. Number one, the way that you know that your technique is working for you is you don't feel like you got kicked in the throat by a horse after 20 minutes of singing. Now, all of these 3 points have all caveats, of course, and they have spectrums, and they have within reason, right, and common sense. But generally speaking, after 20 minutes of singing, you should not feel like your throat was ripped out and thrown on the ground and stomped on and then put back in with your hyoid bone turned this way, right? That's probably not good. You know that immediately. That could be a repertoire question, of course. That could be a technique question, other things. But generally speaking, if you feel that way, then that's not good. Now, if you're tired, the way I sort of talk about singing is kind of gross, but nipples up is sort of like, nipples up is where like we do all the intellectual stuff, and nipples down is where everything else happens, right? That's where the real stuff happens. It's sort of subconscious, voluntary, involuntary muscles work, excuse me. So that is something to think about. That's the first point. If you feel like you got kicked in the throat every time you go to sing, might be an issue. Number two, there should never be an immense amount of resonance changes in your sound, right? And what I mean by that, a tuba has a lot of colors, right? But a tuba needs to sound like a tuba from the bottom to the top. That's generally what a tuba wants to sound like. If you're a great tuba player, you can make a shit ton of colors. Excuse me, I'll beep that out. You can make a lot of colors within that reason and within that kaleidoscope, right? But you still have to be seeing the same kaleidoscope. You have to be looking through the same tube, right? So that's the super big point number two. You have to play your instrument. Now, a lot of people will sit here and a lot of people will argue and they'll say, what about the old day queens, right? The Magda Oliveras of the world and the Victoria de Los Angeles, and they kicked it down into chess register and they had all these fun registrations. I hear you. I really, really hear you. And when you're able to throw it around go for it. But they were able to do that with an immense amount of confidence and an immense amount of technique. Even when those old divas of the day, even when we go listen to Diana Soviero and she goes, right? Don't pull your tongue back, sub point. But even when she does that, it's pretty clear, right, that she has an idea of what she's doing. And when you hear her teaching, it's very clear that she had an idea what she's doing. So no resonance changes is a really good one. Because if all of a sudden you sound like, and then all of a sudden you sound like, struggle, Holden, not good. Check in. Got him. Point 3. Point 3 is probably the most complicated one, right? But I think it's super important because this involves a little bit more like FOC and registration and who you are and what feels right in your voice as much as technique. But point number 3 is, can you do what the music calls for within reason? Now, Leontine's bae, right? She can go up and do that floaty thing. Have you heard Sandra Rodnowski? Have you heard how talented she can like bust up there and float? That's all within reason. Marilyn Horne, like Spitfire Coloratura, like you're not going to be that clean. And if you are, bravi, like you're a star. Thank you for watching my show. But like Rockwell Blake, you know, like these are crazy outliers. But within reason, can you make the color change when the music calls for it? Can you sing the written dynamics? Can you do the legato the way that it's written and the way that the slurs are written? Do you have those long of phrases? So some music is short, some music has long phrases. So if you're singing Strauss, can you get through those phrases, right? These are all really good checkpoints and really good things to think into. And I'll put up these 3 points again at the end of the show. I think they're really good starters. And so in the next couple of segments of this, we're going to really dig in and we're going to do some singing, Jen and I next to each other, and we're going to talk about what we hear and how we adjust it. So I hope you'll stay through with me. Now, that was talking technique. Bravi. Now, what I need to do is I need to get dressed up because we got an awards ceremony to go to. Oh, nothing like a little snap tucks. That's right, folks. It's time to crown the champion of Opera Madness. I got dressed up. It is 93 degrees outside. There is no AC in our house. There is a ring light that's shooting heat, and the fan is on, and if you can hear it, oh well. I'm in a tux. She's all wool. That's all right. I'll make it, so don't worry about me. If I pass out, someone call the cops, but it's probably too late when you're watching this, so I'll be okay. Listen, this has been a blast for me. This Opera Madness has been, for a nerdy guy like me, has been just so much fun. And I want to start by saying every one of these singers deserves a place as number 1. They're the best singers in the world. The 64 we started with, but really the 128 before that, and we could have went on and on and on and on, and countless of contemporary singers who are incredible. So thank you for all of the art over all of the years, you guys. You're the best singers in the world, and I love opera so much, and you have given so much to all of us opera fans. Now, I must also say, I'm so impressed with the turnout of voting. Over 1,000 people clicked on the link and voted, which is insane to me. Like, it's one thing to give viewership, which we appreciate, but that doesn't take an extra clip to get over to the Google form. Like, thank you so much for you guys' participation. It really is like, it just warms my heart. I'm emotional. I didn't expect to get emotional, but I appreciate it so much. I'm so grateful for it. This, sometimes churning out this content can feel a little bit like silly and a little bit like, what am I doing now? And I'm in a tux. It's 90 degrees outside. But honestly, I do it all for you guys because I want and love opera so much, and I want it to be so successful. And I know that we're in a bad, weird time right now, but I hope this gave you a little bit of joy because it certainly did me. So thank you to all those people who voted. Now, I've enlisted, with no further ado, let's just get right into it. Of course, we had Pav versus Leontine, right? Big drama, right? A 1 seed in Pavarotti, a 3 seed versus Leontine. Made it through. Leontine took down Collis. Pavarotti took down Caruso and Corelli, and then ultimately took down George London to get to the finals. And Marilyn Horne went down to Miss Price as well. And so, with no further ado, I have enlisted a little helper. And let's see. Drum roll, please. And the winner of this year's Opera Madness competition on Nick at 9 is... That's right, folks. Luciano Pavarotti still holding his place on GOAT Mountain, greatest of all time. Listen, very, very, very close. It ended up being 6% difference. So Pav gets 56% of the vote. Just an unbelievable turnout again. And for all of those who voted throughout this time, I appreciate it again. Pav, what are you going to say, right? It's Josh Guerrero talked about how he was one of those singers who got into the mainstream, and that's just almost impossible in something like our art form. But he did that, and he did that because he had this huge spirit, and he had this huge love of opera, and he wasn't afraid to go sing, he wasn't afraid to sing with Freddie Mercury, and he wasn't afraid to go sing Pavarotti and Friends concerts and belt with people and sing with James Brown. And so I think opera, we could all learn a little bit from Pavarotti's kindness, gentleness, and ability to not take himself so darn seriously. Miss Price, obviously she's a winner in my book. She always will be. I think the greatest soprano of all time, so she rightfully sits on that throne. But it's Pav, right? What are you gonna do? It's Pav, So thank you guys all for voting so much. This was an absolute joy for me. It was an absolute blast, and I thank you for all of your participation. Dallas Opera, David Lomelli, the whole gang there. Thank you guys for letting me be just an absolute crazy person in doing this bracket. It was so much fun. We have so many more cool things planned for the future Nick at 9, so make sure you stay tuned. I'm going to go get this tux off before I pass out. So much love to all of you guys. Take some rest, and we'll see you at the next Nick at 9. Peace.